Hey, King. Welcome back to the Old Warlock Podcast, number 18.
18. Number 18.
How exciting.
You know,
I would like to start this.
go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead,
No,
please.
you carry on.
I was just going to say, I would like to start this episode similarly to how I started last episode, episode number 17, with just a brief mention of America's greatest basketball team, the
Ugh.
Boston Celtics. Because since last time, they have won the world championship. And to anybody who's, listening to all of these one right after the other, you're probably wondering who's the world champions this year. That's right, it's the Boston Celtics,
You
which is
know,
a very exciting moment.
it was funny,
What?
or at least I found it very interesting. I was saying, nobody outside of the United States cares about this one way or the other. So Rathing, who is one of our longtime followers of the podcast, who lives in the UK, said that he got hooked on Major League Baseball at one
Hmm.
point, and his son he follows the NBA in England.
Hmm.
I think he's in
Yeah.
England. I think he's in Western England, not in Scotland or Wales, but I think he's in Western England. But anyway, I it kind of knocked me for a loop because I was thinking Major League Baseball. How did you even how did you get Major League Baseball in the UK? But I guess I'm not living in 1989 anymore. Things have moved on just a touch.
People
So
have pretty easy access.
yeah, I shouldn't be so surprised when this kind of stuff happens. But anyway, I just thought it was funny because I was there, thinking, nobody cares, and all of a sudden somebody said, "Well, actually, I know all about it." Oh, okay,
Well,
fine.
and it's the Boston Celtics, so everybody cares about that beautiful shade of green. Isn't that right? You used to be a Celtics
I
fan
was a
back in the
Celtics
day.
fan back when I really liked basketball, but I'm just not a big fan anymore. Kind of bores me.
But anyway, this is not a sports podcast. This is a
No,
Dungeons and Dragons
well,
podcast.
it is
And we've got a lot of exciting things to talk
it's a
about today.
gaming podcast. We are not just we do not limit ourselves to Dungeons and Dragons. Granted, there is a heavy dose, but we got other stuff to talk about too. I
That's
think.
true. And
I
some of
think.
those things we're going to be talking about today, which
Yes.
is going to be fun.
Anyway, I guess for those of you maybe that don't know us, I am Jim, and this is Alexander
All
from
right.
the Old Warlock YouTube channel, and we have been running a podcast, I don't know, for a couple of years now, and we're finally kind of getting back on track of having this be a regular occurrence. So
Hmm.
you can follow this on any one of the major, probably even some of the minor podcasting services like Apple Podcasts and Spotify and whatever else. But if you are only into YouTube, we also video these, and so you can watch the YouTube video of the podcast if you so desire.
Indeed. Let us be the ones that accompany you on your drive time. Listen to the sultry voices of Alexander and Jim as you head off to the office and head on back
Yeah, they might head on back because they get sick and they decide that
because they don't
they
feel
don't.
good.
It's like, I don't want to
Calling
go to
out for
work
the day.
today. I can't do this. These guys made me feel sick. Yeah. So what are we
Well, to
talking about
begin
this
with,
time? What are we on?
well,
What are we
I
doing?
thought that
What are
we
we
should
doing?
start off by it's been quite a while since we've actually played some good old Dungeons and Dragons.
It
And we got
has.
the chance to just a couple of days ago.
It
We actually pushed the
has.
recording of the podcast until after we played so we could talk about our adventure a little bit. So I thought we
Yes.
could dive into that.
I think that's a good idea. As Alexander was saying, we played some actual Jim's Homebrew First Edition Dungeons and Dragons the other day with our regular crew of the past decades,
Our
and
regulars.
we we picked up an adventure that had not been played for several months because we've just been too busy to to do it, and it was actually really good. It was a lot of fun.
It was excellently done. Keep talking to the people for a second because I'm trying to find a comment that I wanted to reference here in a minute. Okay, I found it. But yeah, we had a lot of fun. It's a really fun campaign that our good buddy Jim here has thrown together. Um, just this adventure that we're doing. Basically, me and the gang, we got what, four other people? Um,
Is it
we
four?
are,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we are descending into what we discovered is an ancient prison holding some really bad dudes that are possibly trying to escape. We're taking the hereditary guardian of this prison who's just a kid. It's like the same family has been protecting this prison for a really long time, but we're taking him with us so that he can make sure that everything is as it should be and that none of these things manage to escape. So it's a pretty cool setup. And so far, we've only had to replace 2 of the characters on it, one of which was mine.
Yeah, that
He died.
it's been what, 30% deadly, I guess would be would be the way that you would say that.
Or
Something
40%.
40% deadly, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is all part of a bigger situation where we had somebody comment, or they were asking questions the other day.
That's the comment that I just pulled up.
The one about how I run my campaign.
And if you'd like to answer it now, we actually could do that. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, sure. I don't have it in front of me. Can you just read it?
Yeah, I've got it right here. So this is a comment on our video we did on Oriental Adventures, which was just released, and is proving to be very popular. Thank you all for watching that.
Yeah, thanks.
So this is from Yusuf. Yusuf asks, he says, I am curious, how does Jim organize his game world and plan his adventures? Is every adventure ever played in Jim's world documented for future reference? How is his game world map designed? If he had to start over from scratch, what would he do differently from a documentation/design point of view? Very interesting question.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good question. I think that one just came in today. And I was going to respond to him at length, but we can also do some of that here. To the point of it, to the point of him asking whether or not everything builds one upon another, I'm going to have to say no. I mean, I wish that I was that sophisticated to have every adventure be a component of the next adventure, but that's just not the case. And I think it's probably because I like to have adventures take place in a variety of different locations in my campaign. And I think you could thread each adventure together if you wanted to, but I think it would be artificial. It would feel artificial to the players. And so there are places where, yes, there are 5 different adventures that characters have been on over the past 20 years, and they all build upon one another. But to say that each one builds one upon the other, like I said, I wish I was that sophisticated, but I'm not. As far as what I might do, let's jump to the very end of that. And as far as what I might do in terms of if I had to start from scratch, well, let's go back. Let's go to some of the previous question, earlier part of the question. My campaign world has developed. Its biggest development stage took place over about 6 years, really early on. This would have been from 1979 up until the early 80s. And at that point, it was just like, too much creativity almost in my head. Not that I was super creative. It's just that for me, it was too much creativity. And I had to get it all down on paper. And so that ended up being kind of a hodgepodge of different adventuring locations, because I wanted to have something in a jungle, I wanted to have something in a desert, I wanted to have something in a forest, I wanted to have something in snowy mountains, I wanted to have something in underground. And so I created all of those different things within about a quarter of my current world. And then I realized, the person inside of me that is really, really left-brained and has to be organized had to go back in and tie all that stuff together. And that's where the genesis of all of the geography and the topography and the cultures, that's when I had to go back in and thread all of those disparate things together into one coherent whole. So that was in the first, say, 6 years of the development of my campaign. But then after that, I got more of that, but wouldn't it be cool if players could play in this? Knowing that players probably will never play in it, but just the knowledge that those things exist is really important to me. And about 7 or 8 years after I had started playing, I found myself really coming to the library regularly to try and learn about the Punic Wars. And so I thought, well, I've got to have a place that represents kind of a Carthaginian type of locale, and I have to have a place that represents a Roman type of locale, and all of the colonies that they had. So I had to find a place to put that in. Well, that didn't fit into my previous world that I had developed just a few years earlier, so I had to create an entire new section. Then, speaking of Oriental Adventures, I had to, after I started thinking about, I really like Asian culture and the Asian history and Asian stories. Maybe I better set aside a part of my campaign world for that. Well, that didn't fit in with Rome and the Punic Wars, in Carthage, or my Four Kingdoms, Northern European medieval. So I had to set aside a section that would deal more with Asian and Mongolian cultures and Asian style Mongolian cultures. I guess you could say Mongolian is Asian, but you get my drift. So that's really how my world has evolved. It was really just, I think it'd be really cool if people could campaign in this kind of an environment, and so I put it together. And if I could, getting back to the question of what would you do if you had to start from the ground up, I would just have spent more time deliberately planning what I wanted to do and how the geography and topography of this world that my campaign exists on, how that would have affected cultural interaction and cultural exchange, if you will, and cultural migrations and idea migrations and things like that. It would have been a much more sophisticated approach, I hope, to the development of a cohesive whole of a world as opposed to disparate parts that I've threaded together. Now, I'm going to go, I hope I don't sound, like I'm too full of myself. I don't think that my players would ever know or notice that these things are disparate parts of one whole that I've kind of stuck together. But again, it's me. And, the closer I can get to it all making sense, all being logical, all representing a logical development of different cultures and different approaches to living and different lifestyles, the closer I can get to that being a logical, realistic setting, the more important it is to me. And as we've talked on the podcast and in some videos, the more realistic it feels to me, the more realistic I can make it. I believe that I can make it seem more realistic to my players if I have a sense of its realism in my own head. So that's really, I guess that's kind of a long-winded answer to his questions, and I hope I answered most of it. But I wish I could say that it was a much more sophisticated approach than it really was. But after 40 years or 45 years, pushing 50 years, you kind of get there by default.
Yeah, I mean, we can't tell that it's not more organized than you seem to think that it is.
Right. Right.
Because it all does thread together, and there are through lines through everything. But the one thing that I'll add on, I only have a very small smidge of a D&D world that I have created, and I just use whenever I DM for usually my friends that I play with. I come up with just a new thing for that adventure specifically, and it doesn't necessarily fit into a greater creation as of yet. But I think that especially in modern Dungeons and Dragons, which if you're playing, especially some of the newer editions, or even really anything that's after first edition, I feel like there's less of an emphasis that's forced upon the DM of you have to create everything yourself. So if you're trying to create your own, if you're trying to create your own D&D world and set everything up from scratch out of your own head, that can be like a really daunting thing to start trying to do. Because it's just like making a fantasy world for a book series or a TV series or a movie or whatever else it is. And that's a big project. So I think that if you're trying to figure out some place to start for the first time, make one spot in some sort of setting that you like. So if you like mountains, if you like big, tall, misty mountains, Lord of the Rings type settings, make a dungeon that's in that environment. Mm-hmm. And just leave it. That's your first part. And then figure out what's down the road from it. What town might supply people to go and explore this spot. And then design that town. And then just slowly build out and expand from there. because then you can start to create a constant story
Right.
in your own head without having to like draw out all the continents. Like when I was little, I would try to draw out all these different continents and
Right.
have this big thing and then go in from there. But then you're starting with a ton of work that you have to do instead of starting with just an easy, fun, creative thing and then expanding out. So
Right.
start small.
I agree with that completely and I think that has been, I was trying to get at that as being a big part of the problem in the development of my campaign is that I had these great ideas, these big grand ideas. And at this stage of my campaign's development, which, hopefully will go on a few more years, I'm spending time filling in the blanks as opposed to not having blanks because I've taken the time to fill in all the pages as I'm going, as opposed to writing chapter headings and then going in and filling in the chapters, if that makes any sense. And when I first started off, that was what I did. I started off with a dungeon, a little town nearby to give supplies, and then as we've talked about before, it was when my friend John said, "What's over that hill?" And I thought, "Yeah, what is over that hill?" But then I got way ahead of myself. But I was always interested enough in the game to be able to stay one step ahead of the players and get things, as they were heading northwest, I could, lay things out ahead of them northwest. And then when they went east, I could lay things ahead out, as they went east. Well, then as the characters are moving around, pretty soon you've got a fairly well fleshed out campaign setting. But I would have done things differently. I can say that right now, but at the same time, there is some quirkiness in my campaign that makes for some interesting stories that I can, to explain away some of that quirkiness in game. That can be a lot of fun, and it gives me some opportunities that I wasn't expecting, but based on earlier mistakes, or not mistakes, but earlier things I would have done differently. It gives me the chance to it forces me to be really creative to make things make sense. So I'm not saying that everything, all of the jumping to the grand scale and then jumping down to the more micro scale, I'm not saying that was a bad thing all the way across. It wasn't. But I still probably would have done it a little differently because I'd probably be a little more cohesive and further along in my campaign than I am. It's a work in progress.
And the last thing that I'll say, without downplaying what you said about everything doesn't influence everything else that the players do, there are instances where things that the players do influence everything else.
Yes.
And they can influence the world in a pretty significant way, and you allow that to take place without any issue. Like some of the countries that, actually, I don't think I've ever been to the country that I'm thinking of, but one of them was founded in its current state by players in
completely.
your campaign.
Absolutely, yeah.
A long time ago. They built it with other characters, and it now exists for my characters later on in the time scale.
I see
of
what you're getting at.
Place.
I see what you're getting at, and that could be what the question. It was Yusuf, wasn't it? Who asked the question? Yeah, I think that might have been what Yusuf was getting at. That do you have a continuous set of things? Once a campaign is over, does it continue to influence everything else? And like I tried to say early on, sometimes yes, sometimes no, but sometimes very, very much so. And that's a really good example of the country. There's a country called Artek, which was created by friends of mine back in when I was in high school. This was my campaign in 1980, 1981. And the players established a kingdom through a variety of really crazy circumstances that still exists today, and you can go there and see the temples that they built, and it's 40 some years later in real time, hundreds of years later in game time, but it's a cool thing. Those characters love to go back to that country, and it's almost like an old home week when they get to adventure or make a trip to that country, because it's kind of I know that just up that road is this, and they'll go up and try and relive some of the players will try and relive some of the memories of what they did before. The fun part for me about that, though, is trying to figure out exactly what has changed since they were there. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and then you see the players end up, or the players and the player characters, you end up seeing them think, you can see it on their faces, we need to fix this, type thing. So it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. But yes, excellent question. Hopefully that gives you some kind of insight, because people ask about that kind of stuff a lot. So
it's been a popular question.
Yeah. Cool.
So,
Well,
where are we next?
yeah.
What's up? What are we talking about?
Let's talk about the
Oh,
new
did we
game.
finish the talk about the gameplay the other day?
It was very good.
Did we get sidetracked? Did we get sidetracked on that question because we're not very smart and we
I think
can't keep
we
track of
I
things?
think we got a little bit sidetracked on that one.
Just
But the gameplay was really good. I think.
I know what I was going to add.
Mm,
And it kind of ties into that question. That's the reason I was going to say there was a question about, and you said I have this question that I want to
yes.
say. What it was the adventure that you're on. Um, it is it's the present manifestation of a major change in my campaign because I have reached a stage where I believe that there is way too much magic available in my campaign, and I wanted to find a way to bring that down. Alexander's rolling his eyes for those of you who are only listening to this podcast.
Hmm.
Um, I reached a stage where I really was thinking, the whole concept of there being so much magic was taking away from a lot of the excitement of the game. People were able to arm themselves a little more. Not that they can really arm themselves that much in my campaign anyway, but they were getting to the point where I thought, no, this is too much. And
We weren't
so
dying regularly enough
they
for
weren't
his.
dying quickly enough. They were able to
Hmm.
survive what I threw at them.
Yeah.
But what I have done is I have had some a major world plane shaking cataclysm occur. And the way that magic works in my campaign is that when you craft a magical item, what you're doing is you're creating a receptor for power from the planes. And very old magic was exceptionally well made. It was created by people
Uh
who are
oh. Uh
highly
oh.
what.
You cut out there for a second. Keep going.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, that's okay. We're having a couple of you've had a couple of cutouts here. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, really old magic was exceptionally well made in my campaign, or magical items were exceptionally well made in my campaign because of the time and the care that went into creating them. As time went on, things that were made in the past few centuries, the wizards that were putting them together got more sloppy, and so the magical items themselves, the more recent magical items, were started to become very unstable. And this was my avenue for removing a lot of magic in my campaign and getting it back to more of a gritty, basic magic is super, super special standpoint. And that's what Alexander and his companions are now working their way through. They recognize this cataclysm, and actually magical items made in the last few centuries are becoming quite dangerous, and wielding them, you're taking your life into your own hands if you use them, and they do things that they're not supposed to do, and they can explode and kill everybody around them. And so Alexander and his friends are, even though it's they're dealing with this situation on the local level, that local level has some huge ramifications for the next highest level, the next level up. And so there are other things. I can't get too far into it because Alexander will know way too much about what this adventure is going to contain. But
Hmm.
even though it's a local adventure, it's a localized adventure, it has much broader ramifications. And it could end up changing magic for centuries to come if they don't do it right. No pressure.
Well, you know what? I'll ask this in the court of public opinion here. Um, w- in the last major campaign that we had, we, Bill, released something. It was Bill that we didn't want to release from its cell where it was being held, its containment in a mountain where it was being held. Does that have anything to do, Bill, with what we're experiencing right now?
I can't tell you.
You're not going to give me any sort of hint there?
No, I'm
Not
not.
even me, just as Alexander, your eldest son.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yes, that did have a role. Do you remember the adventure that you went on? Well, it was the same. It was the same adventure
Yeah.
where you were trying to find, because there was a series of whole series of different leaders who are trying to gain control of undead in order to create an army. Well, that all ties into this.
I figured it did. I just needed the confirmation of yes.
And
Bill,
the creature,
that,
being that you released, is now a major player in what's happened. Well, no, okay, major player is too strong of a term. Is a minion to a major player in what's happening in the campaign right now.
Okay, that's what I figured.
But this is extra planar stuff. I mean, this is what's going on. Yeah, and you guys are, you're not dealing with the planar stuff yet. You might end up doing it, but yeah, you're dealing with things on the local level. But at the same time, if you screw up on the local level, things are going to be bad at a much bigger level. At the next.
Well,
level
I just worry because I think that my other character, the one that I actually care about, is probably going to be the one who ends up dealing with the stuff
who has
on
to
the
clean
planar level.
Who has to clean?
Who has to deal
exactly
with the crap that this little doofus ends up making. Yeah.
So you better make sure that doofus 2 doesn't die and screw things up.
Doofus 2, yeah, he's still unnamed. It was funny because, well, when we played this last time, me and the one of the other guys, we had to roll up completely new characters because we had been killed at the end of the last session, and we were just inserted back into what was going on. But when we got there this time, I was trying to remember what I had named the guy because I couldn't remember anything about like who he was, and I realized that I had just followed the age-old trope of not naming a character until he gets to level 2.
Until he gets to level 2, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm doing the same thing with this guy. So
well, and
Dingus 2, that's who he
is. Dingus 2. And we can leave that section up behind. We could go on about this for hours, but I did want to point out to listeners that we had a great session. It was maybe 4 hours, 5 hours, something like that.
Five-ish hours.
7 to 5, so about 5 hours. And your characters did not move more than about 190 feet. That was about it. And everybody was dialed in to what was going on.
That's the thing. So much happened.
In 5 hours, in 180 feet. And to me, that was why it was a great session, because I mean, I really enjoyed it. I think everybody else really enjoyed it because everybody was so dialed in. But again, 180 feet, or maybe 190 feet, somewhere between 180 and 200 feet, somewhere in that range. That's as far as you guys moved that day or that night. But I think one of the keys to it was the sound effects that I had going, and it was just the sound of dripping water in a cave. These guys are in a dungeon, a pretty intense dungeon, and
big,
I had a background sound running of water dripping in a cave. They were in a natural. Most of the evening took place in a natural cavern that was filled with water. And I realized at one point, and I didn't want to mention it because it would have broken the spell, but everybody's whispering like this, and
that was what cracked me up because we were hiding on one side of this thing in the darkness from some other creatures that came in, were like looking for us, and so our characters had to be extra quiet in the world because we didn't want to be discovered. But we were talking, we were like whispering to each other for about 5 minutes before I actually realized, guys, we're not there. We can just talk normally. But it was great.
It kept going. Well, and so that was a real plus to me. I really enjoyed that side of it, seeing everybody so invested in the game. The other thing though was Billy taking his arm off to keep from succumbing to poison. The decision had to be made, and he was like, no, I'm going to have my arm taken off. He had been bitten by slow poison. It was working its way up his arm. And he finally reached a stage where he said, you know what? I could try and find some sort of cure for this, but I think at the end of the day, we need to take my arm off. And he did it. But now the thing is,
great amputation scene take place there. We had a lot of fun with that one.
That was fun. It was great. But then at the same time, and we talked about it right after we played, all of a sudden Billy's even more invested in that character because he's got something that makes him unique. It's like, I don't have my left arm, and
Yeah.
it was, and he's figuring out, well, how does this affect my dexterity? How does this affect my strength? And I told him, it affects it immediately this way, but over time your body's going to adapt, and slowly you're going to gain some of that loss back. But to him, it was, this is suddenly an interesting character for me, more interesting character for me, because he's got something he's got to overcome. He's got something that he has to deal with, and this is going to make it an interesting character to play.
Yeah. No, it was really cool because I noticed that he changed how he was playing the character.
Yeah.
He had adapted to the new role that his character is going to have to fit within the party.
Yeah.
And so he's changing his behavior. He's changing what he's doing based on that. And it was, I mean, it was really cool.
It was great. It was great. But anyway,
Yeah.
that was our 5-hour session where you moved 180 to 190 total feet, and we had a great time.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. Here's a question for the people. Was that interesting?
Good
Did you
question.
enjoy
Yeah. Do you
listening
want
to us talk about that?
Do you want to hear us talk about our games, or is that like, shut up and move on to something D&D history related, guys? And we'll take either. We'll take either one.
Yeah, either one. Doesn't matter. But we can lean into one more than the other if you have a preference. Just leave a comment down below, and whatever the court of public opinion says, we might do that.
Yeah.
Or we might do whatever we want because it's our podcast.
That's a good point. That's a good point too.
But anyway, moving on. We're about a half hour into this bad boy.
God, we really are. Jeez. So you get me started, and I'll just babble. So.
I know, same. But Call of Cthulhu. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Call of Cthulhu. I am trying to get up and running with not just Call of Cthulhu. And those of you who have followed the channel a long time know that we have been trying to do this for years.
Yes.
I have finally obtained the rule books, but I don't want to just start with 1920s Call of Cthulhu. I am jumping into developing a campaign that is Call of Cthulhu Dark Ages. And I've been reading through the source book by Chaosium I think I've got it sitting here.
He knows perfectly well he has it sitting there. That was just performance for the camera.
It's going to be backwards, I just realized.
That's
this won't help, will it? Just, okay, never mind.
Hold on. Wait.
What are you doing? Oh, jeez.
There you go.
Yeah, he found the soundboard in Discord.
Yeah, I did.
So, Call of Cthulhu Dark Ages. I have been reading through the source book for Call of Cthulhu Dark Ages, and it is excellent. Oh my gosh. It is set, the scene is set in late 800s, 900s. I mean, you could even stretch it to the 700s, England. And there's a fictional Anglo-Saxon village that basically Call of Cthulhu takes place in and around. But the source book itself does a fantastic job of explaining to people who wouldn't know or might not know exactly what life was like in Anglo-Saxon England and what players might expect to encounter, what people might be like, what kind of jobs they might have, what village life was going to be like, what regional life was going to be like, social hierarchies. I mean, it's really a fantastic book. And if you're looking to expand your Call of Cthulhu, I highly recommend Call of Cthulhu Dark Ages. I love the setting. I love that time period. That's one of my favorite time periods of history, bar none. And so I'm really excited about taking you guys and getting you started in Call of Cthulhu and dropping you straight into Call of Cthulhu Dark Ages. What I think I'm going to end up doing is making you guys be investigators for a group or a sect of a religious sect that has been investigating this type of manifestation for centuries, going clear back to the Roman period. And you are just the latest investigators who have been trained by this sect of probably Roman Catholicism. I'm not sure exactly which way I want to go yet, but you have been trained to investigate these beings, these manifestations, these occurrences in Dark Ages England. And to give you a little bit of a jump up, I'm going to make you a little bit more knowledgeable than the local populace. But I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a good time.
I'm really looking forward to it. I haven't read the book, but if you've ever paid attention to the Old Warlock before, I love Cthulhu. I
Yeah, he
love
does. He
Lovecraft
really
stuff.
does.
It is one of my favorite settings. I've got the collections of the Cthulhu stories that I've read numerous times.
Hmm.
It's just awesome, and I think that it's going to be cool to. Um, d- I am excited to play the standard Call of Cthulhu
Sure.
because that lets me be the hard-boiled potato
Banana
detective.
detective.
You know, there's a Between the Lines reference for you, for you PBS heads out there. But uh, I do think that the Dark Ages, it fits it very well, because a lot of Dark Ages stuff I feel like already has kind of, it's just in the name, kind of this more dreary post-Roman mindset to it, which, shout out to the one classics professor that I had in college who was vehemently against the idea of the Dark Ages, is not necessarily true. Art and good stuff still happened, but it was a different time period. And
Yeah.
so I think that having that kind of, even just the stereotype of it's always foggy and there's always bad stuff
Exactly.
and Beowulf
It's
and
exactly.
it fits right into this whole Cthulhu thing. And so I think
Yeah.
that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm excited about doing with this. There are just no end of opportunities for adventuring in this. And I'm not saying, I'm in no way saying that you're going to be taking on Cthulhu-esque creatures every time. You'll be taking on things of lesser ability, but no less terrifying. And
Oh yeah.
it just the way that they have this set up, again, they've done a fantastic job of this Dark Age, Call of Cthulhu Dark Ages. They've done an excellent job with this, and I'm not quite done coming fully to grips with the rule set. I've already chucked probably 30% of the rules. That's not to say that they're bad; they just don't fit into our style of play. But
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really good.
Well, I think that the question I've had is, we've been gearing up to do this, is are you going to use the actual rule set contained within the setting, within the book, or are you just going to use the setting and place it using our existing Dungeons and Dragons rules?
I think I might actually do a campaign of both.
Mm, sure. Yeah.
I think that there's opportunity to do both things, and the D&D setting, and just chucking out, not try and set it in my campaign. This would be a totally different. Hey, we're going to play D&D in 790s England. I think that could be a lot of fun to do, but at the same time, there are so many good things that they've got going on in Call of Cthulhu that I would hate to miss out on that too. So I may end up doing both with a different angle toward progression and what the story would end up being. But I think either one could work.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So there you
That
go.
sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Weren't you discussing the possibility of maybe playing some, and we can cut this if this isn't going to be something that happens, of playing some Cthulhu Dark Ages at a game store nearby
Yes.
that people might have the opportunity to come and join you/us for?
Yeah, I have been giving some thought to the idea since this is a brand new thing. I have been giving some thought to doing that. I've already talked to one of our Patreon subscribers who lives
Yes.
in the area, and I really he's kind of excited about the idea of this setting, and so I've been talking to him about it and maybe getting him involved. Maybe even a couple of our We have 2 Patreon subscribers who just ended up where we live, and I might try to get them
Delaware.
both. Yeah, here in Delaware, and I may end up trying to get space in the local game store and running a game down there just to get my feet under myself in terms of running that system, not the D&D system, to running the Call of Cthulhu system, because it is different.
Yeah.
And but they're both great guys, and I think that they would be really excited about. I hope that they would be really excited about being able to, be there while I'm working my way through this, because I think it will be a good adventure, and I think they might enjoy it.
But
So
keep
we'll
your
see.
eyes and
We'll
ears
see.
peeled, kids, because that might be an opportunity that some of you might get, if that's something you would want to do. Not to say that that's something you definitely want to do, but if you're
No, no,
interested
no.
in that,
It's really a question of how much time it's going to take and
yeah,
getting it in. We have another Kickstarter coming up, which is going to be taking a lot of time,
yeah,
and so it's going to have to be a balancing act. But I would like to do it. I really would like to do it at
yeah.
some point.
We're busy, busy bees here at the Old Warlock. What can we say, guys?
Yeah. It's
Making that great content for your consumption.
well.
If we do it,
Some would argue,
it's an act of charity. We do it for you guys. It's not to feed ego or anything like that.
not at all.
It's
No,
not because being niche internet micro celebrities is fun.
exactly. Not at all. We hate having people come up to us and say, "Hey, you're the guys from the Old Warlock."
You're the
And
guys from? No, that's stupid. I hate that feeling.
no, well, I mean, and of course it's happened like 4 times, but still, we'll take it. It's
More than it was happening to me before, man.
that's 4 times more than I ever thought it would. So
Exactly. But anyway, how about how about we close ourselves out here
Okay.
by going through that potions article
Oh
that you found.
yes. Momentito here.
That was Spanish.
I
I
thought.
actually don't know if that was actual Spanish.
Actually, I think it would be. That's a little moment.
See.
Let's see. Okay, I found something that I thought you guys might enjoy. I'll give you my standard spiel. As you know, I like to read old magazines that are involved with or that cover RPGs, and this one comes from Pegasus Magazine, which is a Judges Guild production. This is Pegasus number 5 from clear back in 1981, again by Judges Guild, and I found something in here that I thought was pretty darn fun, and I am going to integrate this into my campaign.
Goody. More things that can kill me when I'm just trying to make my way through the world.
That is exactly what it is. And
Hold on, I might have a sound effect for that.
go ahead. Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
This is an article by a man named Roy Cram. And again, keep in mind, this is 1981. The title of the article is Potions Perilous. Now, what Roy has done is as the titles would indicate, he has made potions perilous. The premise on which I'm reading from the magazine article. The premise on which this method is based is that making potions is a very tricky and complicated business involving numerous hard-to-get and delicate ingredients. Any such procedure almost necessarily invites errors and mistakes. Add to this the serendipitous nature of magic itself, and you have a stage all set up and waiting with bated breath for something out of the ordinary to happen. So what he's really doing here is just saying, it's not a 100% given that potions are always going to work. And I think the DM's guide, as I remember, the DM's guide actually, the first edition DM's guide does talk about this. But what he has done is he has come up with a potion defect table, and he gives there's a percentage chance with each individual potion based on how difficult it is for the ingredients of the potion to be obtained, how powerful the potion is. There's a certain percentage chance that the potion is going to fail and fail spectacularly. Yes. And so I'm going to go and look at the potion defect table. We don't want to take too much time with this, but I want to give you some examples of this, and you might want to consider doing something similar in your game.
Yeah.
So if you have a potion defect, you roll, if it's determined that you have a potion defect, so say there's a 5% chance that your potion of giant strength might have a defect in it. You roll your percentage die or percentage dice, and you make that 5%. Then you go to the potion defect table and you roll another percentage. So for instance, if you roll a 1 through 8, number 1, the potion's normal effect is enhanced 10 to 100%, so it can go bad in a good way as well. You get up to 28 to 34 on that table, and you go to a side effects table. If you go to 71 to 75, there is potion failure. It has no effect whatsoever, which would be it would kind of stink to be relying on your heroism potion to function as you took on the red dragon and have it just simply not work.
Completely fail, and then you're not any more brave than you
right.
were before.
You down that bad boy, and then you're standing there waiting to feel like you're going to be able to take on the world, and nothing happens.
As it turns out, you were brave all along.
You didn't need that potion.
You didn't need that potion.
If you roll an 86, the potion has become toxic, and so then you have to save versus poison or die. 87 to 100, the potion appears to be one kind, but it is actually another kind of potion. and then you
Oh,
select that randomly. So you think you've got your potion of invulnerability or something, and it ends up being a potion of flower making or something, you know. Anyway, I wanted to read some of the potions that he has come up with, and he did this in such a way, and he thinks that you should do it as well. You should take individual potions and you should come up with things that might happen if they go bad.
sure.
So the first one he has is Potion of Clairvoyance, and he believes that there's a 9% chance that that potion is going to go bad because it requires primate thalamus, gland, or eye from an animal with keen vision. So if you get that 9% chance and it goes bad and you end up with this, the character's eyes can increase in size from 1 to 4 times. Or the character might develop X-ray vision. Or the character might be afflicted with extreme photophobia. Or the character will start to experience terrifying hallucinations. Or the character grows a long monkey tail. Going to a potion of ESP, 13% chance that that is going to have issues because it requires the brain of a mind flayer to make, or components from a mind flayer's brain to function properly. If it goes bad, the character may gain psionic powers, the psionic powers of the mind flayer. Or the character could sprout 4 ugly tentacles from his face. The character has irresistible craving to eat brains, a la mind flayer. Or the character's thoughts are broadcast to all creatures around. That, to me, is the funny one.
That would be really funny.
Or the character is driven mad because they pick up thoughts for all of the thoughts for miles around simultaneously. There is a potion of giant control. 20% chance of that thing going bad because it requires a giant brain to make. Not a big brain, but a giant's brain.
Giant's brain, sure.
So if the potion of giant control goes bad, the character will suddenly believe that he is a giant, which could have humorous consequences.
That would be funny.
Giants are irresistibly attracted to the character. That could be funny. The character is irresistibly attracted to giants. That would be funny.
That could be really funny.
And the final one was a character afflicted with megalomania and delusions of grandeur, which could be a fun one too.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the potion of flying, and there are numerous potions in here that he talks about. I've just picked out a couple of ones that I happen to like. The potion of flying, 12% chance of being a problem. It requires hippogriff feathers and wyvern blood. So, you know, they're fairly unique ingredients. So if it goes bad, the character could grow feathers all over their body. The character might sprout functional wings from their back, or the character grows a long, ugly tail with a venomous sting. I kind of like that.
That could be, that would be a cool thing to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The potion of gaseous form, problem there as well. Requires vampire dust or ogre magi teeth to make. The character is, if this goes bad, the character could be seized with an irresistible craving to drink warm blood. Or the character develops an abnormal dread of holy symbols or objects. The character might become unable to endure sunlight. Or the character turns lavender. I'll give one more here. And this is the potion of heroism. 9% chance of this one going bad. It requires the heart of a lion or other large cat in order to be created. So the bad things would be the character is polymorphed into a cat. Or the character grows cat fur all over his body. Or the potion works in reverse. Or the character is afflicted with feline version of lycanthropy. And it says, in parentheses, it says, let him find this out the hard way. Or the character has an irresistible urge to lick himself all over. So those are some of the fun things that I think you might want to consider. You might want to consider the theory or the idea of making potions be bad. I'm not saying that these are things that I would have in my campaign. I don't like silly things in my campaign. I got to be honest. I do have silly things that happen in my campaign. I hate fun. Fun is not fun.
He hates fun. Fun is bad.
But I think that these concepts are really cool. And taking a potion and again making it not, I have 12 potions and I'm just going to down these one after another and overcome the ancient red dragon. Maybe you will,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe you will suddenly find yourself attracted to the red dragon because you drank a potion
Mm-hmm.
that you shouldn't have and it failed, and now you are defending the red dragon against your compatriots.
You're fighting your companions. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it just opens up an opportunity for interesting things to happen that just basically new obstacles for players to have to overcome.
Well, and I think that I think that the reason I like it, obstacles I can take or leave.
Sure.
Like, obstacles are good. So, but there will always be obstacles that you have to overcome. I just like the fact that it just makes more sense because if you are buying a potion off the street from some guy who probably doesn't know what he's doing that well, there's going to be a higher chance your potion was made wrong and it's
Right.
going to do something that it's not supposed to do.
Right.
But if you shell out some more cash and you can go and buy a really good potion created by a guy who has like an elf that's done it for 800 years, great, then you're going to have a much slimmer chance of something going wrong. But it also just it opens up a lot of opportunities for you as the player where maybe your thing is that you can help to get the materials to create higher end potions and there's a profit for that because all of a sudden there is the risk that these things could go wrong. You could start making potions that are of a higher quality than other potions and put yourself into business that way. There's all kinds of different things that you could do, and it just opens up a more, it's D&D, it's not realistic, but a more realistic way that you can kind of experience things within
Right.
the world. And I think that's fun. It opens up more story opportunities
Yeah,
than anything else.
and
Cool.
this is kind of story opportunities in an unexpected quarter.
Yeah.
Because like you're saying, it would be cool for me to say, I'm an explorer, I'm a whatever level fighter, and I have my companions here. I'm going to hire myself out to go and retrieve Giant Brain for Magician X to make his potions. That in
Yeah.
itself is a huge adventure opportunity,
Oh,
or
yeah.
series of adventure opportunities. A la Wandering Elephant Expedition Company. It's the same
Yeah.
kind of thing. So,
Go getting magic stuff that people need.
exactly. Going and retrieving things that people use to make other stuff. Just a lot of fun. A lot of fun. But that's all I've got.
So yeah,
And we
that's
are
all I
at
have as well.
52 minutes. Wow.
Wow.
I
For
just-
the one person who's still here, thank you for making your way all the way through. We really appreciate it.
Maybe we should yell really loud to wake them up. But
Yeah.
wake up.
Well, I think it was a lovely episode of the Old Warlock Podcast we've thrown together here.
Well, I hope people enjoyed it. If you have questions or comments about what we've talked about, make sure you let us know. We've had a lot of really good comments lately. A lot of new people seem to be coming on board
Yeah.
in terms of subscribers.
Yeah.
With really good insight into things. And you don't have to agree with us. You can always say, I don't really think that's the way I would do it. I would do it this way. Great. Sometimes there
Yeah.
have been a number of times I've heard read comments and thought, yeah, that is a better way to do it. So yeah, we're not the know-it-alls that we sometimes make ourselves out to be. We're really not.
That's true. But yes, the podcast, our goal is to have these coming to a little bit more regularly than they are now. Our upload schedule for the foreseeable future should be video 1 week, podcast next week, video 1 week, etc. Moving
Yeah,
so on and so
something
forth.
like that. Yeah.
Something along those lines.
And we're also
So yeah,
going to
that's what that's going to be. Go ahead.
we're also going to be looking more at we're branching out. We're going to be looking a little bit more at some miniatures war games that I have taken to playing. We're going to be talking about those every now and then. So if you're interested in that, just keep looking. And if you want to be a part of our newsletter, we're still pushing this. We've got one just about ready to come out. So if you want to receive a copy of our PDF newsletter, which just has more of the same silly stuff, send us an email at officialoldwarlock@gmail.com and say, hey, sign
Everyone
me
who
up for the
signed up
newsletter.
already, thank you.
Thanks.
Because there have been actually quite a few of you
There've
who
been
have
quite a
signed up
few.
for it so far,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
And just to keep
Patreon,
Patreon people are keeping us going on this. Thank you guys very much. Some of you I haven't heard from for a while. Let us know that you're out there. Stefan, I haven't gotten back to you on some of the questions that you had. I will be back in touch with you here probably later this week. But yeah,
Absolutely.
consider joining and supporting us on Patreon. It helps us expand things and do more stuff with the channel. And finally, I'm going to toss in a plug for our upcoming Kickstarter, which is called Expedition to the Forest of Moon, which I think you guys are really going to like. And thank you to all of you who supported us on our initial Kickstarter with the Deck of Contradiction. We think that you will also like Expedition to the Forest of Moon.
We think you'll like it even more than you will like the Deck of Contradiction. We're very, very excited about this. There's been a lot of effort that's gone into it. Hopefully we're going to be, for those of you who enjoyed our advertisement for the Deck of Contradiction, that little
the movie-ish,
the cinematic trailer thing that we put together, we're going to try and, we've got some ideas for something else for this new Kickstarter that we want to do for that. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We actually had a lot of fun making that last time.
That was so much fun.
So yeah, we're really excited to keep doing stuff like that moving forward. But yes, we've got all kinds of fun stuff that should be coming up here. We're getting back into the groove of things. And that's all I have to say.
That's all I've got. Hopefully this all recorded properly. All right. Yeah, keep your ears and eyes and stuff open. And thanks for stopping by and spending an hour with us talking about basically fun stuff.
Dungeons and Dragons and whatnot.
I am Jim.
All right. I am Alex.
Keep your sword on free.
Bye-bye, gang.
Bye-bye.